Hello and welcome to a very Canadian episode of Turf Business TV. I'm Jemima Codrington and joining me today is Andrew Gyba, Course Superintendent at Glen Abbey Golf Club here in Ontario, Canada. Andrew, thank you so very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Firstly, how are you doing? How is everybody doing? How is your team holding up in the club? How is everybody managing with the COVID madness that's all around us?
Yeah, I mean, all's as well as can be expected, I guess. You know, a lot of changes for everyone, and you know, new policy and new procedure to get used to, and a new way of operating. But I'm very fortunate to be blessed with a very versatile staff and a very understanding staff, and everybody is doing their part to help the club move forward. So it's going as well as can be expected.
Yeah.
But yeah, all in all, things are going very well. Thanks.
Good. Glad to hear it. So Glen Abbey, I think, you know, a very instantly recognizable name for fans of the tour and people who work in golf and for North American fans especially. Talk us through the course and the club a little bit. So designed by Jack Nicklaus.
Mm-hmm.
How long ago was that, and sort of how has the club and the course changed in the years since, and what have become some of the really defining features of the course?
Yeah, so 1976, Jack Nicklaus, Mr. Nicklaus's first solo design, and to my understanding, the first golf course in the country, as well as one of the first golf course in Canada that was built specifically with hosting a PGA Tour event in mind. It's also one of the first stadium design golf courses. So by stadium design, what I mean by that is it has a very unique routing in that it's a spoke and wheel routing. So everything kind of branches out from the clubhouse. It's incredibly spectator friendly. Lots of open area for you know, tournament setup and concession stands and you know, grandstands and all the like. And kind of the stadium aspect of it comes from, you know, the green surrounds and a lot of viewing areas on the golf course. So you will rarely find yourself, if you are viewing a tour event at this property, looking up onto a green. You know, you can see every putt roll, every ball drop. It doesn't matter what hole you are on this golf course, and it's very special in that way. I know in 2013 the property was voted most fan-friendly or most spectator-friendly event on the PGA Tour by the PGA Tour. So it's a great place to watch golf. It really is.
Fantastic. And looking more at a surface level then, what grasses and what grass have you used on the greens, and why was that choice made?
The greens are, over the years, I mean, we're an older golf course. The POA has come in. So if, you know, when I get asked what kind of surfaces the guys are playing on, I say it's just a bent POA mix. It was originally seeded to C15, you know, during construction, and C15 did have its issues when it first came out, and they moved away from that. Eventually went to an L93 mix on greens, and after that it's kind of been a mixed bag based on the superintendents that have been brought in. We've had a lot of success overseeding with new varieties of T1, but if someone was to ask, I'd still say we're predominantly you know, a POA golf course or a bent POA golf course. Yeah. Right.
Okay. And in terms of the manpower that you have to look after all of that, I mean, I suppose it's probably a little bit different now in COVID times. I don't know if you're working with a full team still, but what does the team normally look like?
Yeah, we are running with reduced numbers right now. You know, we operate as a public golf course, and you know, revenue is it's our business. Our business is golf, and we're here for that purpose. But we typically run with around 30 staff, you know, in what would be a quote unquote typical year. Yeah, and then when tournament time comes around, we can ramp up to we've done it with as low as 60. and as much as just under 100. So kind of, based on volunteer response and based on the season and the demands of the property in that specific year. But 30 staff for a typical season.
Sure. Let's talk toys. Let's talk machinery and kits. What have you got on the course at the moment, and what's the thinking behind your choice?
A big part of it, we're owned by Clubland Corporation, ULC, which is the biggest owner operator of golf clubs in Canada. So a big part of it is corporate deals, where we can use our size and our buying power to leverage better pricing from vendors. But I've been on red iron Toro equipment my entire life. And I think that I would probably make that choice regardless. Seeing some of the things that in different equipment that I've demoed over the years, there's a lot of great manufacturers out there. They make a great product, but Toro has consistently put out a solid product year over year over year. Acquiring parts is never an issue with them. It's the supply chain for parts coming up from south of the border for us always goes really smooth. We have a great master distributor in Turf Care Products that's out of Newmarket, Ontario, which is close to us, which can help us out whenever we need anything. So the quality is there, the service is there, the parts are there. I can't complain about anything that the Toro company's ever done. So yeah, it's definitely my preference.
High praise indeed. So thinking then as well about the sort of the manpower and the machinery that you use, I suppose golf's a little bit different to other sports in the sense that when it's time for those Canadian winters, you can't just put up a dome or the roof across, that playing surface is exposed to Canadian elements all year round. What sort of challenges does that present?
I don't know if there is such thing as a typical winter anymore. But if we were to talk about what I think a typical winter is you head into November and temperatures start to cool off, the plant starts to harden off. You head into December and you freeze and you get snow, and the golf course stays frozen, and it stays with a healthy blanket of snow on it for the entire course of the winter. Hopefully you get into March and you start having a gradual warm up, and things melt off and slowly get warmer, and then you move on with your next season. What's been happening with us in Southern Ontario for the last 10 years is the winters have been becoming incredibly unstable. And if that's an effect of climate change or what it is, it's happening. So we're finding ourselves in a situation where we're getting a lot of thaws in January or thaws in February, and we will be exposed without that protective blanket of snow cover. I mean, for all the turf managers that are listening, everybody knows that, or if you don't know, if you're not in a snow-covered region, 12 inches, or about 30 centimeters of snow will put you at 0 degrees Celsius at the bottom of that. So we could be minus 20, minus 30, minus 40 C over the winter. And as long as we have that 30 centimeter blanket of snow, the turf is happy. It's sitting at 0 degrees, and it's not that susceptible to injury. We've been running into, and the industry as a whole and everybody in Southern Ontario have been running into a lot of issues with ice coverage over the years, prolonged ice coverage. We've been having a lot of events where we have a healthy blanket of snow on the golf course, and then it rains. And that water just moves right through that snowpack, right to the bottom, and it'll freeze. So now we're dealing with ice coverage issues. And, depending on what literature you read and which professors you listen to, for someone like me who's on POA, We have 30 days to 45 days before we're suffering the effects of anoxia. The other thing that's been happening on the flip side, when we're not dealing with ice, we find ourselves exposed a lot. So, when you're 5C to minus 5C, you're not overly concerned about that. When you start getting minus 10 Celsius and below and you're exposed now, desiccation becomes a pretty big concern. So, what I say to the membership we have, we operate as a semi-private golf club now. So we have a membership, and we also allow public play in the afternoons. So what I would say to the membership now is that it's turned into a 12-month endeavor, managing our playing surfaces here in Southern Ontario, at least. And, we're regularly out there in the winter and watching the weather and watching the upcoming weather and trying to make good decisions about whether or not we remove snow, trying to do extra practices, things like, taking cup cutter cores right down to the gravel in our greens profiles, trying to provide some extra, bit of drainage in the event that, we had rain on top of snow, and, trying to move that water off the surface of those greens so that it doesn't freeze. So yeah, it's winters are becoming almost as stressful as July and August. Here in Southern Ontario in the summertime, temperatures of, it's going to be, 31 Celsius today, feeling like
I can
35,
confirm that.
yeah, 38 with humidity. Temperatures of 42, 43, 44 in July and August are not uncommon. And then, we can go to the complete opposite end of the spectrum in January and February, and, be dealing with, minus 20 to minus 30 degrees Celsius temperatures with wind chill, right? So it's become a 12-month endeavor, and it's just about having foresight and planning and trying to make the best management decisions you can based on the weather and the upcoming weather. But we can't turn it off anymore for a couple months like we used to. So yeah.
Sure. If we can then maybe talk about your career in greenkeeping and
Sure.
Talk a little bit about how and where you started and the road that's led you to Glen Abbey, because how long have you been at Glen Abbey now?
I am in my 9th season. I started here in 2012. So I guess if we were to start at the beginning, as most, it started as a summer job. It was a way to keep out of trouble. The old man said it's time for you to go learn the value of a dollar and get out there and work, and work for in the summers. So I was 15 years old, and I got a position at the construction and grow end of a property just up the road called Rattlesnake Point Golf Club. 45 holes. It's a club link property, and I had an amazing time there. 15 years old, and trying to stay out of trouble as best I could, I guess. But it just turned into a regular summer job. And, you're going through high school and you're 18 years old, and they say to you, it's time to decide what you want to do for the rest of your life. And I couldn't imagine doing anything else but what I had been doing for the last few summers. So I decided to pursue a career in turf management. Got accepted to the program at the University of Guelph, the turf management program at the University of Guelph. Went through that, secured the assistant superintendent role at Rattlesnake Point Golf Club the next year, and worked there for 3 more or 4 more seasons, I believe. Anyhow, it got to a point where I was heading into my 10th year at Rattlesnake, and forever grateful to Bill McAllister, my mentor, and the guy who brought me up and kind of showed me the ropes. But I was ready for a change, and I was ready for a new experience. And I got an opportunity at a smaller private club in a neighboring town called Eagle Ridge Golf and Country Club, another club link property. And I went there for one season as the assistant superintendent and had the opportunity to take over as the superintendent in 2008. Worked there, got the opportunity to do some great projects, some T rebuilds, started a bunker renovation, which the next superintendent completed, a complete overhaul of the irrigation system, new pipes, new wires, new heads, right from the pump house out. It was great, and really got the opportunity to turn that place around and turn it into something special. The opportunity here at Glen Abbey came up in 2012, and I didn't hesitate for a chance of that. I'm a hometown boy. I was born and raised in Oakville, and I spent my childhood, kind of driving by the gates and peering through the fence and maybe sneaking out at night and hawking golf balls out of the creek and out of the forest and that sort of thing. And it was just for me and my family, it was a very, very special place. I have a lot of memories, coming and watching Canadian Opens here with my father and my brother, and seeing players like Nick Price, watching him hit that shot into 16, watching Tiger hit that shot onto 18 out of that right side fairway bunker in 2000. Legends, great players, and they were here in my hometown, and now I had a chance to apply for the job and work here. So I put my papers in, and I got the opportunity to interview, and everything went my way, and I got to take over here in March of 2012, and it's been an absolutely phenomenal experience. We've had the opportunity to host the RBC Canadian Open 5 times in my tenure. So we did it in 2013, 15, 16, 17, and 18. And it's been the experience of a lifetime and the opportunity of a lifetime. So.
Sure. So I think the club as a whole has hosted a record 30 times or something crazy like that. Yes.
Yeah,
talk about the experience of going from fan to the man behind the scenes, the man who's making it, making everything happen, and making sure that those surfaces are as good as they can be for the, like you say, the heroes that you used to watch growing up.
I don't remember much of the first 2. It was such a whirlwind, to tell you the truth. The support from the PGA Tour is second to none. Tournament golf, tournament conditions, these guys are the absolute best in the world. It's not to discount what the RNA does. It's not to discount what the USGA does, what all these governing bodies, what Golf Canada does. But the staff of the PGA Tour do tournament golf day in, day out, week after week after week, 365 days a year, 12 months a year, right? And they are the absolute best in the world at what they do. So the support that they offer, and the interest that they have, and the care that they have for every property that they go to, it really took me back about how invested they are in every event. So, they hear that there's a new young guy that took over at the Abbey, and, he's never done a tour event before. And we're heading there in 2013. And, starting in the spring of 2012, I started getting regular visits from, the competition agronomist who was assigned to this property, Harry Schumann, who's since retired. And Harry was an absolute gem, just for support as a resource, and to help guide me through, my first couple events. Yeah, the support that the tour offers is just absolutely second to none. So they guide you through it, they walk you through it, and then it's up to you to deliver and whether or not you can put everything that they're looking for in place. But they'll if they know that you've never done it before, and it happens to them all the time, they'll make sure that you're prepared, and they'll make sure that you have everything that you need to have a successful event, right? And then from that point, you just kind of figure it out, and you can start, looking forward. The one benefit that I had is that we did so many events in succession. So I was basically in a position where I was working with them firsthand for a period of 7 years. Multiple, site visits through 2012, the year prior to my first event. Had the opportunity to go out to Hamilton Golf and Country Club that year that was hosting in 2012, and ride around with the superintendent, who's since retired, Rod Trainer, and ask questions and spend the morning with the agronomist and driving around and just seeing what morning maintenance for a National Open / PGA Tour event looks like, and having the opportunity to ask questions and take notes, and just see, which is so vitally important. And then what it really turns into is you really get a sense of family with the tour, with amongst themselves, and if you show that you're a team player and you show that you're there with their best interests at heart, they don't hesitate to help take you under their wing and help you improve and get better, and everybody benefits from it at that point. So yeah.
Well, and you mentioned earlier that you have volunteers that come in and help out as well. What does that sort of do to your team when you get that call and say, right, it's a go, or it's an open year? Where do you even begin to think, right, how are we going to get all these hands on deck to make this happen?
I am in the fortunate position that we are, owned and operated by Clubland Corporation. So, we have 35 golf courses at our disposal where we can draw staff from neighboring properties and all the like. Outside of that, this is Canada used to host two PGA Tour events in a season, and I think it was the Air Canada Open. It was in British Columbia every year. Has since, it hasn't been around for maybe 5 or 10 seasons or something like that. But my point is, it's the only event in our country, and it also happens to be, our National Open and one of the oldest professional golf tournaments in the world. When you put the call for volunteers out, whether it be through our local association or just picking up the phone and calling neighboring properties and neighboring superintendents, industry people, neighboring technicians, neighboring assistant superintendents are, just waiting for the opportunity to be able to be a part of that and see what it's all about, and see what they can learn and what they can take back to their home clubs. So we've always been very fortunate that there's been a lot of interest in not only in our own system and our own network of clubs, but the local neighboring clubs having staff and parts of their management team more than willing to come and help out, and just to be a part of it, to help out. It's just that sense of community within the turf management community here in Southern Ontario, where guys are just, they'll be there for you if you need them, and I'll be there for them if they need me, right? So yeah
sure. So fair to say that the Opens are a career highlight? Would that be a fair statement?
Career highlight, absolutely. It's to have 2018, to be able to stand on the 18th green with the number one player in the world at the time, Dustin Johnson, and have him win, at your golf course, it's something special. So we've had, phenomenal champions here at Glen Abbey over the years. In my time, Dustin Johnson, Jason Day, Brant Snedeker, Jonathan Vegas set a Canadian Open record and won in consecutive years, and at the same property, no doubt. But you go back over the list, and it's a list of Hall of Famers. Tiger Woods, Nick Price, Greg Norman, Jack Nicklaus never won. he finished in second a few times. He always likes to make the joke that Barb would keep sending him back until he could get it done, but he never could, right? So it's amazing, the history of the property, and the players that have played here and that have walked these grounds, and for a relatively short lifespan too, right? Like, we're only talking until 1976. So we've been very fortunate to have that opportunity. Golf Canada is headquartered off this property. They have their offices here on site, and it's a special place.
Yeah, absolutely. A slice of Canadian golfing history.
Yeah.
In terms of challenges then, challenges throughout your career, not necessarily just at Glen Abbey, but as a whole, I mean, we've obviously touched upon the weather and the climate. I think probably COVID, I think is fair to say it's been a challenge for absolutely everybody. What are some of the toughest things that you've come up against, and how have you dealt with those?
I mean, agronomically, the valley holes here can be tough. As an industry, we didn't have as much of an appreciation for agronomics, or I shouldn't say as an industry, but maybe the way that we designed golf courses, worldwide, prior to, I'd say, the early to mid 90s, maintenance wasn't necessarily a big consideration in the design of the golf course, right? I think after that, people finally, designers especially, and owners and these sorts of things, started listening to their superintendents more and their turf professionals more, and started kind of designing around some of our requirements. These simple things like giving us space to turn a mower in between a green and a bunker, right? So the valley holes are absolutely stunning. They are, they're an incredible layout. It's, one of the toughest driving holes on tour, and number 14 for, I can't remember how many consecutive years it was. I don't want to mess the stat up in an interview like this. But just a gorgeous, gorgeous property and a gorgeous layout. But at the same time, you're in a valley, a steep walled river valley with 80 to 100 foot walls on either side. You drive down that hill, and it's a minimum to 5 to 10 degrees hotter down there. 5 to 10 degrees Celsius hotter down there in the summertime. It could be that much cooler in the winter or in the early mornings. West facing greens up against eastern slopes where you're not getting direct sunlight until 9, 10 a.m. based on the time of the year. So it can be a challenge for air movement. It can be a challenge for sunlight. But it's all manageable. It's all very manageable. And I think we've put a good program into place, and we've kind of figured out how to deal with it. And we've had some good success, especially through the last 5 tournaments that we've hosted. So.
Sure. And looking forward then, I think Ontario, like a lot of places, is taking a phased approach, and things are starting to open up again. And that means people are going to be returning to the game. What do you think that might look like? What does golf look like in a world post-COVID?
Right now it's very different right now. If you're a golfer and you want to play at Glen Abbey today, all your reservations and your payments have to be made online. There's no cash exchanging hands at the club or anything like that. You're asked to arrive at the property no more than 20 minutes prior to your tee time. And this is something that's very different for people that play here. A lot of times, around at Glen Abbey is an event for a lot of people in the surrounding area. It's a father and son that have been, planning it for, weeks to months to come out. It's not uncommon that, we'll run into groups out there that are from, the Atlantic provinces or south of the border, or, from out west, that have come and wanted to make this a stop, and it's an event for them. They'll stop by the Golf Canada building, they'll go to the Golf Hall of Fame, they might book a fitting at the TaylorMade Performance Lab, get a fitting done, work with some coaches, walk around the property, check out the Wall of Champions and all the plaques.
Full day event.
Right? Take some photos and, practice at the range and, have lunch and dinner, and you can't do any of those things right now. Mm-hmm. You show up 20 minutes prior to your tee time. You're checked off on the list to be sure that you have booked a time. You're politely asked to move to the next parking lot and wait in your car until somebody lets you know that it's your time to take your clubs out of your trunk. You're asked to, put your own bag on the golf cart or on the pull cart. And then from that point, you get about 15 minutes at the driving range to hit a few balls and kind of warm up really quick. The putting green's available. There's no holes in it. There's no bunker rakes on the golf course to eliminate touch points. We've gone a simpler approach with our pins on the golf course and our cups, and we've just turned our cups upside down. It resembles putting relatively well. It's not the same as putting into a full depth cup. But the guys are being good. They're coming up with their own local rules and these kinds of things. If you hear it hit metal, then it counts and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's very different that way. But the biggest thing is people are enjoying themselves and there's a social aspect to it within their own groups. But, for the membership, for example, we'll be having kind of like an informal men's night tonight. And, there's no kind of social aspect to it, right? It's show up with your predetermined threesome, tee off. You probably won't see the guys in front of you. You won't see the guys behind you because we've spaced tee times out so much to allow for social distancing. There's no dinner after. There's no socializing after. There's no drinks after. The clubhouse is closed. There's no prizes. There's no scoring. There's no nothing, right? So it's very, very different in that way. It's basically just you and your group, and you go out and you play golf and have fun. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here, right? So it's very different. But rumors that hopefully provincial restrictions will be loosening up in the coming weeks to months, and we can kind of get back to some sense of normalcy in the near future. So we'll see what the future brings.